y'all. It is me, Shanae M. Artist, and my friend, Rashonda Blackman. This is my very first episode of Kingdom Conversations. Just an opportunity to talk about doing things in this life God's way. And so I'm really, really excited to be here. Really grateful for an opportunity to come and have some real conversations with real people who are really living or trying to live continuously life God's way, especially in the midst of the way our society currently is. So thank you guys for joining us. All of our replay watchers, thank you for watching. Appreciate you. And today we're going to be talking about waiting and dating God's way. Listen, it's a struggle out in these single streets. Oh my gosh, just trying to navigate singleness and relationships, and doing it in a way that's honoring of God, especially again, in light of the way our current society is not always easy. And a lot of times we get caught up in things and situations and have to deal with consequences that, we would prefer not to. And so as a Christian woman, as a believer, as someone who does know for a fact that she will be married, confident in that, and does know that God knows who my mate is and where he is and what he's doing right now. And, just waiting on God to send him my way. I wanted to have this conversation with my sister because she is very insightful, also a woman of faith, and also in her own season. So anyway, without further ado, Miss Rashonda Blackman, she is first of all, she is a life coach and a mentor. Okay, she's coaching people's lives and mentoring them. Okay, just so y'all know that. She's also a single ministry leader. And a single ministry is called Love Thyself. She also has her own podcast called Matters of the Heart with Rashonda. She also wrote a children's book called Billy Wolf and the Kids of Heavenly Hills Elementary School, which is so cute. Me and my daughter have a copy of it and we loved it. And she has her own website. She's a blogger. She has her own business on the side doing graphic design. And she's just a woman of many, many talents, y'all, and definitely a gift to me. And I'm really excited to have you joining me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to be your first guest.
Of course. Who else? Who else?
Out of the many, many guests you're going to have on the show, I'm so happy to be the first. So
absolutely. Who else? But yeah, so before we jump in, because we're about to jump into this conversation, I just want to say, make sure that you guys are liking, sharing, and dropping any comments that you have in the chat. If we don't get to them during this stream, just because we get carried away talking, because we both love the chat, no worries. I will, and Rashonda will come back and answer any questions and things like that that you guys might have. So just, a little get started. We're talking about waiting and dating God's way. And I know that you and I have been having these kinds of conversations since the beginning of our friendship, sisterhood, relationship. Like, we talk about this almost every phone call. A little bit of it goes into that. And so recently when I reached out to you about this whatever, this show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, you made a comment to me and that, I wasn't, it didn't set me back or anything, but it was just like, I didn't know that that's where she was. And you said that you were in a season of waiting. And I was like, that's interesting because ever since I've been talking to her, we've both been on this, where my man at? You know what I mean? So to know that now you're in an intentional season of waiting, I'm like, I want to hear a little bit more about that. So tell us a little bit more about your journey, where you are, and kind of how you got to where you are right now.
So my season of waiting, I think God had to pull me by my hair and everything. Was like, girl, you gonna wait because I was just so focused on finding a mate, finding someone that completes me, finding my one. Well, God said he doesn't want us to be alone. So I'm trying to find the one. Now listen to what I said. I'm trying to find the one. Yeah. I'm trying to look. And I remember one night I got so frustrated and I'm like, God, why don't you just tell me who he is. Just tell me. Now, when we get into those moments, we have to realize that the enemy hears us too. And so I went to bed with that. And then before I woke up the next morning, like right before, the Lord put this person into my spirit. And I was like, is that my husband? Is that what? So what I did was I woke up and I called him. And I was like, God just told me something. Has he been dealing with you? And da 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 da. And he was like, no. No, God ain't been dealing with me about anything. What you talking about? And I was like, but God just told me, and I told him, God just told me that you were my husband, and da 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 da. And truth, it's a real story. The first thing he said was, "Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, what you been doing? Do you mind if I come over and I wash some clothes and whatever?" And when I say it was not God at all, yeah, I was just so focused on, okay, God said this, but he came over and it was just like he was nothing like. It was not of God, it was of the enemy. And I knew that, okay, because I was in this emotional tirade, the enemy was like, oh, okay, well, we're going to send her somebody, somebody she's familiar with, whatever. And that was some years ago. But at the same time, I realized that, okay, God, I'm letting it all go, because it's obvious every time I seek someone or I try to find someone, it never works out. So I just got to the point to where I was like, okay, God, I think you want me to be single. I think you want me to be alone at this particular time in my life. And I just, as they say, I just took the bait, and I just been waiting on God and just listening to his voice. If God calls me to fast, I've been doing that. It's just basically been intentional about just listening to God and not being overly excited about being in a relationship. Because before, I realized too that I had some things that needed to be worked out. I had some daddy issues. I had some insecurity issues. I had some abandonment issues, and I had so many issues on the inside of me, until God is like, you don't need to get into no relationship with those things. You need to come to me, drink from my fountain, let me heal you completely. Quit getting off this surgery table. Let me heal you completely before you get into a relationship with anyone. Right now, it needs to be a relationship with me, because you don't need to be in a relationship with anyone. You have some issues that you need to work out, and those issues can only be worked out through me. And so that's where I'm at right now.
So you're just in the season, what I heard you say a few minutes ago, what I thought was really good was letting go. So you're in a season where you've intentionally let go of trying to find this mate for yourself, and you are allowing God to do the work that you feel he needs to do in you to prepare you for a relationship. That's really good. And I think that really answers what my next question was going to be, which is, what does it mean to you to wait on God? And it sounds like that's it. Letting go, not being out here running the streets, trying to figure it out on your own or trying to make things happen for yourself, but really, relinquishing control to God and allowing him to do the work in you that needs to be done so that you're ready once it's time for you to get into that relationship. So my next question then is going to be to you, and this is something we talked about too, and I know, girl. So right now, society. Okay, so let me tell you my story. So a few months ago, maybe like 2 months ago. Okay, so first of all, for like the past few years, I have been intentionally single. And when I say intentionally single, I mean, people assume that when a woman is beautiful or she has things going for herself or something and she's single, that there's a problem. But what people don't realize is that some people, men and women, intentionally make a choice to be single because they want to focus on other things, very similar to what you just said. And so for the past, maybe let's say 5 years or so, I have been intentionally single and I have been content in my singleness. I haven't always liked being single. Of course, I've wanted to be with somebody at times, but it hasn't been a situation where I've been like overly stressed out about it and that whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
Once I found myself at the point where I wanted to be with owning my own home, having my career, you know, being where I want to be professionally in this moment or what have you, and where I started to feel more settled in myself, I started to be like, all right, Lord, now it's time to date. Like, I done did this, I done did that. Now I'm trying to get me a man. And like, let's pull this thing all the way together, right?
Right.
And I had prayed about it, and I just remember myself saying several times, like, I want to date, I want to date, I want to date. And Lord have mercy, don't you know, this man showed up. Okay. Now, mind you, the man, fine man, look good. He said Jesus too. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, talking to this person and like engaging with this person really was, first of all, I realized he was not somebody I was supposed to be talking to at all, period. However, in the midst of all of that, I learned several things, not just about myself, but I learned about how society is currently dating. Now, back in the day when I was out there doing my little shaboodles, you know what I mean? I dated multiple people at one time, you know what I mean? And, but I've never been the type of person to just be like going out with all these, like literally going out with all of these people and like on this scavenger hunt. And I feel like right now in society, that's what people are doing. Like, they are so insistent upon being in a relationship that they have this whole strategy for going out there, getting on a website, meeting, like chatting with like 5-10 people, and then writing down names on the list, and then going out with this one, going out with that one, going out with this one, that one, just to figure out which one is the one. And then when they get that one, they choose that one. And I'm just like, y'all bugging. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. So tell me, what is your idea or your thought about this whole dating multiples mindset that society has?
You know, it's one of those things where it's either culture over God or God over culture. And I think we're in a situation right now where there's a whole lot of culture over God. It's about what the world thinks, what the world says. Oh, you're a Christian. Oh, it's fine today. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But it's at the same time, it's being led by God down certain avenues. I know for me, I was like, if whatever I heard that what people did to get someone, that's exactly what I did. I was going by world standards. The world said get online and create a profile. And, you know, well, I know several people that got online and created profiles, and they are married now. You know, they are in good relationships. They found somebody good. But guess what? That didn't work for me. I did dress up and go down the grocery aisle, you know, not having money in my pocket to buy the groceries, but I was looking good, just so I could find a mate, you know, because this person said that that's what happened to them. It's going by what everybody else is doing and not knowing that might be the way God had it set up for them. But for you, it may be totally, totally different. So I feel like as a Christian, we're not supposed, as a Christian woman, Christian man, we're not supposed to be going by what the world says, you know, dating and all this stuff should be. We should be seeking God about what He says it should be. And I think that will keep you from out of heartbreak lane. You know, because go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like I need to seek the Lord. So if online dating is not it, then walking down the grocery aisle is not it. You know, we will find ourselves seeking things that's just not of God. We take ourselves out, we spin ourselves, we go crazy because it's not happening. This is where God wants you to settle down and be like, hey, you need to come drink of my fountain. Let me tell you what it really is. And then you can, you know.
Yeah. And I think you made a really good point, a couple of good points. So the first one is about being led by God, because I think, first of all, we understand as believers that we all have the goal is a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, right? A personal relationship with God, meaning between me and him, you know what I mean? Or me and them, the Holy Trinity. And in that personal thing, he responds to us and he leads us in a way that makes sense for us. You know what I mean? And that is the whole point of us being able to, us seeking him for what it is that we need, because you may, like you said, you know people that go online and that date and that they, I know people that have gone online and dated and now they're married with kids and like they're doing, and they're believers and they're doing it. You know what I mean? And they have a great relationship, great family life. But for me, that's not the way. You know what I mean? But I don't know that that's not the way if I'm not going to God and allowing him to show me the way. So one of the first things I think, like you said, as believers, we have to do is be willing to let God lead us into dating, waiting on him, and into dating in a way that works for us. And we won't necessarily know that unless we go to him and say, hey, what's best for me in this situation? How do I do this? Because, you know, he sees all things and he knows all things. We only know and see a small slither. We see things one-sided, but he sees and knows everything. Now, let me say this. People make this comment, and this irks my nerves. And it started irking my nerves a few weeks ago when I really, really thought about it. People say, oh yeah, God is not going to send a man to your house and knock on your door. So you need to be out there doing X, Y, and Z. You need to be out there doing all these dates, and you need to be walking down the grocery store line and all that kind of stuff. And so when I really sat back and I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, God is not, you never know, okay? The Lord might send my husband in the form of the Spectrum cable man. I pulled my door to set up my stuff, and next thing you know, we in holy matrimony, okay? But let's just say that he doesn't, right? Let's just say that he doesn't, and he probably won't, right? However, God will lead you in his perfect timing to where you need to be in this universe so that you and the person that he has ordained for you to be with can meet. You know what I mean? He will do that. And so that is why we need to be mindful and be allowing him to lead us and not being led by society. I'm so glad. And this is part of why I wanted to start having these kinds of conversations, because I'm at a point in my life now where somebody can tell me, oh, Shanae, you should do this. And if it don't sit well with me, I'm not doing it. Period. However, I know that there are people out here, women and men, who believe in God, who know the Lord, who want to live in a way that honors him, and who want to receive what it is that he has for them, but they don't have the strength or the capacity, or they're not mature enough yet in who they are to be able to say, yeah, I hear you telling me that's what I should do, but I'm not feeling that. They'll do it because they think that, oh, this person, whether they're a Christian or not, oh, this person knows what they're talking about, let me do it. Now, let's say I would have jumped out there, and don't get me wrong, I'm not judging anybody that dates them all, sis. Date them all, sis, if that's what the Lord is telling you. But I'm just saying, for me, that's not my style. I don't like that, and I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? It's just not how I operate. So, yeah, and then, you know, that whole faith without works is dead. Like, you got to pray about it, and then you got to run out. Well, what you praying for if you going to get up and go do it your way anyway? You might as well not even pray. Like, faith without works is not, let me pray about it. Lord, send me a man. Okay, now I'm going to every grocery store. I'm going to every show. I'm going to, dang, no, that ain't faith.
You know what's coming to my mind? Thirsty. We can get so thirsty, you know, with trying to do things on our own. And this is why relationship with God is important. Because when I came into this year in 2022, you know, when we all come into a new year, we expect God to give us a word and, you know, okay, God, what's the word for this year? And God had a couple of words for me. And it was, I want you to love yourself. And when he said that, I was like, what? You want me to love myself? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't love myself, But what he was saying was, it goes beyond the hair, it goes beyond the makeup. Because a lot of times we feel like loving ourselves, it includes us getting our hair done, our makeup done, getting a new outfit, and doing us and doing all these cutbacks and all this other type of stuff. And that's not it. God was saying it's an inside thing. I want you to love yourself. So that's why I said earlier, it's about going to him and seeing, God, what is it that I need to work on? God told you to start a business. Have you did that yet? Investing in yourself, investing in, what God has asked you to do, investing in the classes, putting money into things. But you so busy worrying about a relationship and all this stuff. There are some things, and I'm a firm believer of this, that God wants us to complete while we're single. Before we get married, there's a purpose in being single. There's some things that God wants you to complete in your single season. Because guess what? When you get into that married season, what did Paul say? When you get married, I wish you would be like me, because the married people, they tend to the things of the marriage. It's about the husband. It's about, whatever. And most people lose their identity in that. You have to have an identity before you get married. So this is where the love yourself comes in,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's good. That's a good point, because I wanted to discuss that self-love as well, because like I told you before, I'm also on that journey. And for me, it really looks like going and doing things by myself, taking myself out on solo dates. Like, there's a time, maybe even a couple months ago, where like over the past months or years, I've been not collecting, but when I go shopping, sometimes I shop for date night outfits. And so it was funny, because last night when I went out to the DL Hughley show, I wore one of my date night dresses. Now, mind you, when I bought that dress because in my mind, I was going on a date with a man, like with my husband, right? But when I came home last night, I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, I took myself out again and I wore one of those date night dresses that I bought. And for me, that's a part of my self-love journey, because it's learning to spend time with myself, learning to enjoy myself, learning to, laugh at my own jokes and my own silliness or whatever the case may be. Because at the end of the day, I don't think we can be in a successful relationship without knowing who we are and really being in tune with that, and I think that's why a lot of women and men, but I'm just going to speak on women because I'm a woman, get into these relationships. Like, they feel like they have to be in a relationship because being in a relationship defines them. Like, oh, I got a man. Okay, and what else do you have? You know what I mean? Babe. Okay, and what else? Like, what about you? Like, I think that when we are secure in who we are before we get into a relationship, one, we bring more to our person that we're with, but also if things don't go right or when things go wrong, it won't affect us as much because we haven't made that relationship our identity. Like, we've come into it knowing who we are. So I think that is a really good point that you made about waiting and dating God's way. We have to love ourselves first and be in tune with ourselves first before that.
And then too, marriage is ministry.
Yeah.
Marriage is all about ministry. You and this person getting together, what your purpose is. This is why it's important when you're single to figure this out. Go to God, get this stuff figured out. What is your purpose? Because your purpose is supposed to match what his purpose is. And together, you guys are a team and you're supposed to do ministry together. It's not about the sex. Because what if something happened and hey, I can't have it. He can't give it. He can't give it to me like that. So it has to go beyond that. It has to go beyond the physical, and it has to go into the spiritual. Marriage is ministry. What are you guys doing together? What are you guys doing together to build the kingdom of God? Because you're supposed to match, and God knows what's in me. and what's in him, and what us coming together is what it's going to do for the kingdom. Which is why the enemy fights marriages and things of that nature. It's important. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't know who you are or figure out your identity before you get into a relationship, before you get into a marriage, because you will find yourself sabotaging it, before it can even, get off the ground.
And let me just say this. I think a lot of times too, people think that, and you've been through marriage before. I haven't. So I'm not trying to act like I'm the marriage counselor here, because I'm not. All right. But I think that a lot of times people feel like people will get into relationships that are not necessarily the one that they should be in. And then they wind up marrying that person. And it's like, okay, God honors marriage, but God does not ordain every marriage. Every person that's married is not married to the person God would have them to be married to. Like some people are married to the people that they chose because they were thirsty. And then there's people that are married to their purpose partners, to the people that God has ordained them to be with. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about waiting on God to be partnered with that the purpose person, the one that he has ordained for you. Because anything outside of that, I don't even want it. It's a waste of my time. You know what I mean? Because he knows what's best. And if he's saying that this is what's best, then I believe that that's what's best and that's what I want. I don't want anything less than that. So that's the
thing. Being married before, I got married young. I was 23. 23, I think, when I got married, and we had been dating for like 2 years before. But do you know that relationship had so many red flags? God even allowed me to escape the relationship and whatever. There were so many signs that said this person was not the one, girl. He was not the one. God had already told me when I was 19 or 20 years old who my husband was. Wow. But because I didn't have the patience to wait, because I was short story, long story short. I was dating this guy when I was 16, and he would always tell me, God said you were my wife. God said, but God had never told me that, and whatever. So, we dated and whatever, but then things happened. The Lord spoke to me. The Lord told me who his wife was. But in the midst of God telling me that, he also told me who my husband was. Well, his relationship with the one that God told me was his, it worked out immediately. When I say it was like God said it today, and within 2 weeks they were married, and whatever. And to be honest, that was back in 98. They are still married today.
Oh, wow.
That's so, God had already, so I was like, okay, God, well, I know he wasn't mine. But because the person that God told me was my husband, it didn't work out just like that.
Right.
As they say, I didn't have that collard green mentality. Ain't nobody gonna go to the store and get some collard greens and then you come home and cook them for 15 minutes and expect to have a good meal, right? Yeah. Collard greens have to simmer. So I wasn't simmering. I was like, God, wait a minute. You did it just like that for them. This person, I'm expecting, okay, mine's going to happen in 2 weeks. Mine's going to happen, but it didn't. What God wanted me to do was wait and pray for him, because he needed prayer. God wanted me to labor for him. And I did not have the patience to do that. But because it didn't happen just like that, I ended up 2 years later getting into a relationship that I knew was not God ordained. But because I felt like he was the only one that was showing me some attention, because I've always been told, oh, you got an old spirit, or you wise beyond your years. And I could never attract guys my age. It was always guys that was old enough to be my dad. And so when I married this guy, he was like 16, 17, 18 years older than me, and I'm in my 20s. So I knew it wasn't the one, but I did it because it was convenient. We were shacking up. We were doing things we shouldn't have been, and I was like, well, might as well get married.
Well, yeah. And it's like
married a year and got divorced.
Right. Like, oh, we already acted married, so let's just go ahead and get married and God's gonna honor this.
Might as well.
But let me ask you, so what about the one? Look, I need to know the truth. What about the one
The one is married now. He's happily married, and I'm so happy for him.
Pray for him. Lord have mercy, child. Listen, let me say this.
I'm so happy for him. He's happily married. So to God be the glory for that. So, but yeah, I feel like, and I asked God that probably some months ago. I was like, well, God, you a man that can't lie, you know. But that's what the Lord told me. He was like, you didn't have the patience to wait. I needed you to pray for him. Like, your marriage wasn't going to be like that other marriage and just happen just like that. This is where I needed to posture myself in prayer. Right. And pray and fast for him, and God would have brought it to pass, but because I didn't. And you know, it's crazy because I went through some terrible relationships, you know, and he did for a while too. So it was just like
that just makes me wonder, like, can God bring that back around? You know what I mean? I mean, I know it will require something detrimental to happen, but it's
I don't want nothing detrimental to happen.
we don't want anything detrimental to happen. I don't know. Listen, let me just say this for people who are watching, because I know that there's people. First of all, I am a believer that God can and will tell people who their spouse is. I believe that. I believe that for a fact. What I will say to people who feel like they're in that space, just like you said, I do not suggest that if God reveals to you that somebody is your mate, do not go tell that person.
Please don't.
Keep your mouth closed.
Right.
Because God might be revealing it to you to give you peace, number one, about your single season and your waiting. And number two, like you just said, to pray for that person. You never know where a person is, what they're going through, what the situation is. And I'm telling you, I know for a fact that God will reveal to you who your spouse is. And that does not mean you need to go tell that person. Because just like you said, people gonna look at you like you crazy. Like, what? God said what? He ain't tell me that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we have to be real careful when we, as believers, feel like God has revealed something to us, that we don't go running our mouth about it when we have not been given the clearance to. And before anything, pray about that thing. You know what I mean? And make sure that it's really from the Lord and of the Lord. And pray for that person, because at the end of the day, if God is ordaining it and he wants that thing to be, I mean, how beautiful is it for someone to be able to partner with God to bring deliverance or healing, or just to bring their mate that God has ordained to a place where they recognize them as their person, and God has done some miraculous work in their life. Like, that's just awesome to be able to partner with him in that way. So don't go running your mouth. Keep it to yourself.
And don't try to make things happen. Don't be all up in their face. Because when the Lord revealed that to me, I was like all up in his face.
Uh-huh.
I was all up in his face. I was trying to make things happen.
Like, girl, down.
I was trying to make things happen. I was like, okay, God said, you know, blah, 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 blah. Right. And that was so wrong. That's not what God needed me to do.
Yeah. And honestly, that's because you were at a place of immaturity in your faith and who you are as a woman. Now, I'm sure if that were to happen, you would know how to handle it, and you would just be like, all right, Lord, cool. Let me just sit back and look pretty and wait for my man to come. You know what I mean?
Right. Because God's a man that cannot lie. So if he said it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
And why would he show you something or reveal something? My thing is, why would he reveal something to me if that's not what will happen?
Yeah.
Why would he do that to me? You know what I mean? Why would he send me through all of that? It don't even make sense. But so to wrap this thing up, what are some practical things? With some practical tips that you can give to people who are in their season of waiting and dating, or just waiting or just dating? Like, what are some practical tips so that they can stay in a place of doing it God's way? Because the truth is, and I want to say, and the reason why we're saying God's way is because God created all of this. So when the person who created the pen, they know how the pen needs to be used in order for it to work. The person that created the universe and the people that are in it, he knows what we need to do in order to get the results that we want to get. You know what I mean? And we can't go to something that didn't create us to tell us how to navigate. Like the manual comes from the instructor, and God in this situation, he's the instructor. He created relationship, Adam and Eve. That was his design. So obviously he created it. He knows how it's supposed to operate in order for it to be effective. So that's why we want to do it his way, because his way is the way. Like the other ways are made up ways that people have created, but we want to do it his way because he's the one that originated it. He's the originator of the way. So what are some practical tips that you can give to people who are wanting to wait and or date God's way?
The Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. It's Matthew 6:33. So of course, I'm going to always say, go back to, like you said, and you put it perfectly, go back to the instructor, the manufacturer, right. Because he knows every single thing, and talk to God. But it starts with having a relationship with God and building a relationship with him first, for God to tell you who you are. So let's put the man or the woman aside for the moment, and don't be so zealous. The Bible tells us don't be anxious for nothing, but in all things in prayer and supplication, watch and pray. So don't be anxious about the marriage or the dating and all that stuff right now. First of all, go to the manufacturer and see who it is that God has created you to be. Where is it that God wants you to go? What is it that God wants you to do? And the only way you're going to get those answers is through having a relationship with God, fasting, praying, and as they say, and having that collard green mentality and let it sit and simmer for a while, or whatever, because if not, you're going to get some very nasty results. So, but it's going back to the manufacturer and just giving your heart to God and just seeing what God wants you to do. Another thing is being intentional. And I'm talking about real intentionality. And I say that because I have been to the place where I was like, okay, God, I'm good. I hate that word. I'm good. No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm good. God got me. I ain't thinking about no man. I ain't thinking about no woman.
The Lord is my husband.
Right. You doing all of that. Until that nice pair of pants come in the room.
Right.
That nice skirt come in the room, and guess what? God is out the window, honey. Right. So it's about being intentional about your relationship with God. And then figuring out what season does God have you in? Because God could have you in a season of loneliness. Yeah. Where it's not meant for you to date. It's not meant for you to have anybody in your life at this point. And I talk about that on the YouTube channel that I have. What season are you in? And figuring that out, because each one of us is in a different season. My season right now is a season of waiting. And like you said, about a season of self-care and loving myself and seeing it, what it is that what else has God got in here that he wants to bring out and wants me to, to use for the world or for his glory or whatever. It's like you said, taking yourself, spending time with yourself. I went on a date night with myself last night too. And honestly, I did not feel weird about it. I sat there. Now, I will say this, most times people feel like, well, I can't do that. Well, I just ain't got the money. Right. You ain't got to sit up in Red Lobsters. Mm-hmm. You can take yourself to Mickey's, honey, okay? And still still have a good time. I didn't look around. I wasn't, people looking at me. I felt so good with being there by myself and doing that whole thing. And it's about being comfortable with you, but it's about going to the maker, figuring out what it is he wants you to do, being intentional, real intentionality. If you say that, hey, you ain't dating right now, God got me in a season of loneliness, God got me in this single season, okay, then mean that. That's not for the cute guy, the cute UPS guy that come in the office and and you trying to get his number. No, if God got you in a season of singleness, stay there. It's for a reason. So it's about real intentionality. Another thing is when God decides, he delivers. When God decides, he will deliver. When God decides he'll deliver. Look at Adam. Adam was in the garden. Guess what he was doing? He was doing everything that God had called him to do. Working, tilling, da 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 da. Guess what? He was doing all that. Adam wasn't thinking about a wife. Not one time did the word say that Adam went to God, hey, wait a minute. Something missing here. I'm lonely. I need, but the Bible says that God looked around. He seen that he had made a mate for every animal except the man. So he said, I will make a helper for the man, because he's seen that, oh, wait a minute, it's not good for man to be alone. I done made everybody else except for him. God put him to sleep. Yeah. So when God decided, he delivered for Adam. And that's the way we have to look at it for our case. When God decides, he delivered. When God decides it's time for you to be in a relationship or be married and whatever, he's not, I tell God this all the time, you ain't stupid. He's not ignorant. He doesn't know what he's not oblivious to what's going on. He's a very intelligent man, and he knows when is the right time for things to happen. So you have to believe that even for your own situation, that God, hey, God knows he forgot about me. The enemy's job is to make you feel that way.
Yeah, he has ordained the time. Yeah. So it's not like he's waiting for the time to come. The time is already ordained, period. It's going to happen. It's a matter of getting there. You know what I mean? And whatever it needs to take for you to be lined up in that place. And as you're allowing him to lead you through life, he's going to lead you to the mate too. You know what I mean?
You could very well be holding yourself back. Right. The more you don't take out time and ask God what it is he needs you to do, guess what? The further it is from you getting married, you very well could be the holdup because of your impatience.
Yeah, but I also think that too. There's another thing, because one of my other friends, we talk about this as well. She's my prayer partner actually. I think there's an idea that sometimes people have that we have to do this and do this and do this and do that to get to God. You know what I mean? Get to this blessing. And sometimes you've done everything that you can do. You've done the work. You've healed. You've learned how to love yourself. You've become, you've bought the house. You've excelled in your career. Like, you're in a good space in your life. It's just not the right time yet. It's not God's ordained time for you. And it doesn't mean that if you're single, there's something wrong, or even always something more that you need to do to get what you're trying to get. Like, God is not sitting back like, oh yeah, go over there and do that. Yep. Now when you do that, go pick that up. But you're not gonna get it until you go over there and get that too. Like, he's not doing that. It just may not be the time. And so if you're someone who feels like, and kind of I feel like that's where I am. Like, I know that I still have things that I want to work on, but I also know that I will not be perfect before I get married. Period. Yes. That's just not gonna happen. Like, there's work that I'm gonna have to do on myself as an individual. Once I won't know that though until I get married. So for now, I'm just doing what the Lord is leading me to do. If it's learning how to spend time with myself and be comfortable with myself, then that's it. But some people, you might not have to go through this whole long laundry list of things to get married. You just need to be.
Yes.
Just be yourself.
Stand still.
And just wait and just rest. You know what I mean? Just rest in God and enjoy being in a personal relationship with him. That's it. And it sounds so, number one, easy, but then it also sounds like, so that's it. But yeah, sometimes that's really just it. Just be where you are in life right now. Enjoy it. Be committed to it. And that's just that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I thought of while you were talking was, I think it's really important for us as believers to not get caught up in society's way of doing things. Like, we can't let the way society says you should date be the way that we date. If God is not telling you to do it, don't do it. The Bible talks about not conforming to the world's standards, the world's systems, the world's customs. People have their own way. The world has its way that it operates, and then there's God's way.
Yes.
And God's way is contrary to the world's way. And if you want to transform your life and transform your mind and all of that, you cannot get caught up in trying to do everything the way that the world does it. We can't. We're called to be set apart. We're called to live life differently. And people might not understand it. Like, almost every time I go back home to New York, people, oh yeah, so who you dating? Who you with? Like, first of all, like, I don't think people understand, like, I'm single on purpose. I know I look good. Like that. But I'm not joking. I know that. Okay. And I know that I'm a good catch. And I know that I'm a good woman. But I also know that God knows the perfect person for me. And he has him. And I don't want anything less than that. So of course, if I go according to society and my friends or family or whoever, girl, I would have been with like 10 people by now, because in the world's mind, there's no reason why you should be single. But in my mind, there's every reason for me to be single, because the one that God has created me for, we ain't on it like that just yet. And I'm waiting for that. You know what I mean? And so, but that's a spiritual mindset. That's a God's way of doing. And the only way I got to that point was getting to know who God is and understanding him and allowing him to lead me to this way of thinking. And so, last question. What advice would you give to somebody who finds themselves like in their own season of waiting or dating, or, you know, just feeling overwhelmed by feeling lonely or feeling alone or what have you? What advice would you give them to navigate that space?
You know, Paul said that I have found that basically whatever state I am in, to be there with content. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to do that. We have to be content in those spaces and just be like, okay, God, it's not happening for me right now. I'm not going to rush it. But whatever you decide to do, this is the heart posture we have to have. Whatever you decide to do, and this is going to hurt, even if you decide not to send nobody.
Yeah.
Can you really say that? Even if God decides not to send anyone, you still be content.
Could who say that? Because I ain't going to say that. I ain't at that point. I ain't say that.
Look, could you still be content, even if God did? But you have to. That's what contentment is. Is even getting to that point of saying, God, even if you don't do it, look at the 3 Hebrew boys. I know that you could. I know. I still trust you. I'm still gonna serve you. I'm not gonna abandon you because you're not giving me my temper tantrum once. You know. So it's that, but and I would say don't listen to everybody, listen to God, because people will get you all mixed up. They'll make you feel like it's something wrong with you, but you ain't. Girl, it's been 10 years and you still ain't got nobody, because the enemy fights you the most at night. When you alone, when you in your bed, there is nobody talk. Then all these conversations starts coming back to your mind and whatever. And that's where you have to get before God, and you have to pray. You have to give that over to God. Quit listening to people. The world's standards is not, like you said, God's standards. Right. We're living out of the kingdom. So we don't abide by what the world says, you know, as far as what should happen, what should do, what you put yourself in this place, do this check off list and all that stuff. That type of stuff will make you crazy. Yeah, well. But it's about, because I'm in the kingdom, then I'm going to do what the kingdom says. My mentality is different. But it all goes back to the foundation of what we've been saying this whole life. It's about your relationship with God, and it's about you getting into a relationship with God and allowing him to be your husband, your wife, your best friend, whatever you need him to be at this moment, and let him lead and guide you. So that's like the best thing that I can give to somebody. And enjoy yourself. Enjoy being with you. If you're uncomfortable with being with you, what makes you think somebody's going to be comfortable with being with you? You know, You afraid, you don't, well, I don't know about this, but you want a relationship. You got to be comfortable with being with you. Take yourself out, take yourself to the movies. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking, every month I'm thinking about, okay, now where can I take myself today?
Right.
What am I gonna do this month? And whatever, and not have this thing in the back of your head, like I'm doing this, like I'm trying to show God that I'm doing this so he can hurry up and send somebody. Right. No, I'm doing it because right. Even if God don't do it, hey, this is where I'm at right now. I'm happy with where I'm at right now, and
this is just where I'm at. Yeah, right. I like that. Contentment is necessary. It is being good with where you are, even if it's not where you want to be.
Right.
Good and grateful with where you are. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for just having this conversation with me. Really, really appreciate it. Look forward to doing it again. Look, I have to have you come back because we got to talk about sex. We got to talk about sex. And so the reason I want to talk about sex, not to be controversial or not to be worldly or anything like that, but just because it's a thing, right? Sex is a thing. And our current culture is so overly sexualized, it's sickening, okay? You can't turn on nothing without seeing boobs and butts. You know what I mean? And it's just like, but I really want to talk about sex because I don't think people really understand the impact of sex on us as human beings. And not just as physical beings, but as spiritual beings. Like what sex is like. Why do we think the enemy uses sex the way he does? Why is everything so overly sexualized? Because there's something in that messes us up when we don't know no better. And I know that for a fact from my own experiences, as well as now knowing what I know now, I can understand. It's crazy, but I want to have you back to talk about that because you have done a lot of work around that and around soul ties and that whole kind of deal. And I think that's the conversation that we should have. I know we've talked about how much the church doesn't talk about it, but I thought about it the other day and I was like, well, the church, they kind of have to appeal to a lot of people at once. You know what I mean? So they kind of got to be a little more on the safe side with their conversations, because if not, it can cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, right? And so I'm kind of leaning towards taking my foot off the church's neck about talking about sex in the way that we want to talk about it, because I kind of am understanding like they can't go down that rabbit hole when they got all these people to think about. Whereas I ain't got all these people to think about. So I want to talk about, and I want to talk about sex. So
yes. It's a perfect subject. But people are suffering in silence too, because they can't. Certain conversations are not being had. But whatever. But so we definitely do that.
So how can people find you if they want to check out your podcast, if they want to join the singles ministry, if they want to learn about your coaching and mentoring? Like, where can people find you, or your graphic design business? She actually created the flyer for this Kingdom Conversation. So the one I posted like 2 weeks ago, she made that. So like, where can we find you, or people find you if they want to connect?
As far as the podcast, it is Matters of the Heart with Rashonda. I do a Sunday's Word every first Sunday of the month, and a Thursday's Tip every second Thursday of the month. So you can find that anywhere, wherever your favorite podcasts or radio stations reside. So I'm on Apple, I'm on Spotify, Vine, iHeart, all of those places, Stitcher. So Matters of the Heart with Rashonda is there. I do have a YouTube channel. It's Inspirations with Rashonda. So I've gotten quite a few videos up there. So it touches on different things: singleness, seasons, relationships, and all that other type of stuff. So even fasting. So you can go and check that out. As far as my design business, you can email me at rblackman58@gmail.com. It's Rashonda B Creative. So yes, God bless me. I do flyers, logos, simple websites. I'm not a coder or anything like that. Look, I don't do all that techie stuff, but you know, we'll do your website, you know, to kind of get you out there, get your business, get your business going, social media flyers and things of that nature. So if you're interested in that, I do have a website for that. It's RashondaBCreative.wordpress.com, so you can check that out and you know, and whatever.
So can you do me a favor after we hang up? Can you come back and just put those in the comments? Yes. Just in case anybody like the links to those. Perfect, because in that way people can click on the link and just find you real quick. But yeah, thank you so much again for joining me today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know we're going to have so many more off this, on this, whatever the case. What I do want to say is that we're going to do Kingdom Conversations once a month. So it's going to be, for right now, every second Saturday of the month. So I'll be back next month, September, with another guest, and I'll share more about that. Look, I got on I smell like Jesus shirts. So if y'all want to grab one, hit your girl up, because I still got a bunch of and of course can always place an order. But thank everybody for watching. Thank you for those that saw the replay. Thank you for those that are going to share and comment and all of that kind of stuff. If you would like to get on this show and have a conversation with me, please hit me up, send me a message. I'm so open. We ain't gonna debate and argue and all that. We just gonna have some good going conversation. So hit me up if you want to do that. And yeah, feel free to let me know if you have any questions or anything. I hope y'all have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.